never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.
Brian Giles with Brian Giles MTG. And this is video number 3, actually, because I've already done the original reveal video. So this is video number 3 of the Jumpstart spoilers. Jumpstart 2022 is shaping up to be one of the best sets out of this year. I mean, Brothers War is good. Lots of good stuff in that. There is just absolute banger cards, good playable reprints. This is arguably better than the original Jumpstart. So, starting off right into it, we have Flicker of Fate. 1 white and 1 for a instant that reads exile target creature or enchantment, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. A flicker mechanic, cheap cost, and there's a lot of crazy stuff you can do, especially with the prototype cards you get in Jumpstart, because when it comes back into the battlefield, if you have it as a prototype and you flicker it, it comes back into the battlefield as its full type, and that's a cheap cost. So you got a cheap prototype out there, and then you flicker it in as and it comes back as its bigger thing. That can ruin games. Just ruin games. So I like that inclusion. Now, mind you, these are designed to be played, put 2 of these together and you play. But these are going to be seen played elsewhere in other applicable formats, for certain. Next up, we have Alchemist Vial. 2 colorless mana for an artifact that reads, when Alchemist Vial enters the battlefield, draw a card. Pay 1, tap it, sacrifice Alchemist Vial, target creature can attack or block this turn. So, fun. Next up, we have another good reprint in Expedition Map. So, 1 colorless mana for an artifact that reads, pay 2 colorless, tap it, sacrifice it, search your library for a land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle. Next up, we have Golem Artisan. 5 colorless mana for artifact creature Golem reads, pay 2 colorless, target artifact creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn. Or pay 2 colorless, target artifact creature gains your choice of flying, trample, or haste until end of turn. So, this is very, very useful, powerful. It's probably going to be in that Karn deck that we saw, the Karn that we talked about, the Karn Liberated. This is the Tron deck. And this, I like. Lots of playables. Next up, we have Lochlane Gargoyle. 1 colorless mana for a 0/3 artifact creature Gargoyle. Pay 4 colorless, Lochlane Gargoyle, and gets +2/+0, gains flying until end of turn. It's an okay thing, but it's a good blocker for 1, and later on you can have it as an attacker if you need. Next up, we have Mannequin, a reprint we haven't seen in a while. 2 colorless mana for a 1/1 artifact creature construct. Tap it to add 1 colorless mana. Next up, we have Meteor Golem, a beefy 7 colorless mana for a 3/3 artifact creature golem. Meteor Golem enters the battlefield, destroy target non-land permanent and opponent controls. It's beefy. Not a lot of people see play with it, but with all the Power Stone love we get, recently, this thing could get out of hand. Next up, we have Rune Servitor. 2 colorless mana for a 2/2 artifact creature construct. Rune Servitor dies, each player draws a card. Kind of a little political mechanic going on there. Next up, we have Thaumaturgist Familiar. 3 colorless mana for a 1/3 artifact creature bird with flying. When Thaumaturgist Familiar enters the battlefield, scry 1. Next up, we have Universal Solvent. Haven't seen this reprint in a bit, but it fits the theme. 1 colorless mana, an artifact that reads, pay a beefy 7 colorless, tap it, sacrifice it, destroy target permanent. And next up is another cool reprint. In Walking Ballista, X and X colorless mana for a 0/0 artifact creature construct. Walking Ballista enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. Pay 4 colorless, put a +1/+1 counter on Walking Ballista. Remove a +1/+1 counter on Walking Ballista that deals 1 damage to any target. There's a lot of artifact, counter love. So I'm not unhappy with this. I think a lot of people will like to see this card. Next up is Thriving Bluff. Another one of the lands you see in the Jumpstart deck. Enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, choose a color other than red and tap it to add 1 red or mana of the chosen color. So that's that. Next up, we have Uktabi Orangutan. 1 green and 2 for a 2/2 ape that reads, when Uktabi Orangutan enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact. This is probably going to fit in that ape deck that we saw. With the 1 ape. And the bananas ape. Bananas! Banana. Okay, next up we have Lita, Mechanical Engineer. Not familiar with this card. It kind of looks like something out of maybe dude, I can't even think of my sets today. I can see the set symbols. Like where Saheeli's from. So Lita Mechanical Engineer is a 1 white and 2 for a 3/3 legendary artifact creature artificer with vigilance. At the beginning of your end step, untap each other artifact creature you control. That's evil. She's a mythic, and she also has pay 1 white and 3, tap it, Create a 5/5 colorless vehicle artifact token named Zeppelin with flying and crew 3. Ew. This card is dope. Straight up dope. Creates vehicles. Creates vehicles for 4 mana. It untaps vehicles. It has vigilance. It's only 3 for a 3/3 with vigilance and all that other stuff. I'd want the pack that this girl's in. Hoo-ha! Next up, we have Peace Walker Colossus. Only 3 colorless mana for a 6/6 artifact vehicle. Pay 1 white and 1. Another target vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. Crew it for 4. This thing could absolutely have evil plans in a vehicle deck. And with the stuff you get out of Kamigawa and some of the stuff you get out of Dominaria United, this thing could just be absolute powerhouse. Sorry. Next up, we have Feast of Blood. Now, I'm not sure if this is out of the one of the Innistrad blocks, but I'm not sure if it's out of the more recent ones. I think it's probably out of one of the original ones. No, because it says being part of a wedding, so it's probably out of Crimson Vow. So Feast of Blood is 1 black and 1 for a sorcerer that reads the spell. Cast the spell only if you control 2 or more vampires. Destroy target creature, you gain 4 life. Hoo-ha! Next up, we have Rodolph Duskbringer. 1 black and 5 for a legendary vampire angel. It's a 4/4 with flying, death touch, and lifelink. I don't think I've ever seen him before. Whenever you gain life, Rodolph Duskbringer gains indestructible until end of turn. Hoo-ha! At the beginning of your end step, you may pay one black or 1 white and 1 to return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. That's ugly! That's a fun vampire. Next up is Oathsworn Vampire. 1 black and 1 for a 2/2 Vampire Knight. Oathsworn Vampire enters battlefield tapped. You may cast Oathsworn Vampire from the battlefield if you gain life this turn. So this is another vampire one. And next up, we have another cool reprint that belongs in this vampire theme in Blood Artist. Everybody loves Blood Artist. 1 black and 1 for a 0/1 vampire reads when Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Next up is Creeping Bloodsucker. 1 black and 1 for a 1/2 vampire. At the beginning of your upkeep, Creeping Bloodsucker deals 1 damage to each opponent. You gain life equal to the damage dealt this way. Hoo-ha. Next up, we have Disciple of Perdition. 1 black and 1 for a 1/3 human warlock. When Disciple of Perdition dies, choose one. If you have exactly 13 life, you may choose both. Draw a card, lose a life. Or exile target opponent's graveyard, that player loses 1 life. Ugly. Next up, we have Ingenious Leonin. 1 red and 4 for a 4/4 cat soldier. Has pay one white and 3. Put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature you control. That creature is a cat. It gains first strike until end of turn. Ooh, cat theme. Hoo-ha, that sounds fun. Next up, we have Conductor of Cacophony. That sounds like something out of the Ravnica blocks. So 1 black and 3 for a 2/1 demon. Conductor of Cacophony enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Pay 1 black, remove a +1/+1 counter from Conductor of Cacophony. It deals 1 damage to each other creature and each player. Well, that sounds fun especially in a commander game. Especially if you're dealing with some weenies. Next up, you have Infernal Idol. 3 colorless mana for a artifact that reads, tap to add a black mana. Or pay 2 black and 1, tap it, sacrifice Infernal Idol. You draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. That sounds interesting. So next up is Rwandi Behemoth Caller. 1 green and 2 for a 1/3 legendary cat shaman. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 5 or greater, that creature enters the battlefield with X additional +1/+1 counters on it, where X is its mana value -4. So this is your big, beefy creature. I can think of some things that could absolutely deal with that. It also has creatures you control with 3 or more +1/+1 counters on them have haste. Tap it to add a green mana. That's lots of value in a single card and only a rare. Hoo-ha! Next up, we have Primeval Herald. So 1 green and 3 for a 3/1 Elf Scout with Trample. Whenever Primeval Herald enters the battlefield or attack, you search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So, more land searching. Next up is another good reprint in Elvish Rejuvenator. 1 green and 2 for a 1/1 Elf Druid. When Elvish Rejuvenator enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You put a land card from among them onto the battlefield, tap, put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. Next up, we have Thrashing Bronodon. This, I think, originated in the Ixalan set. 2 green and 1 for a 3/4 dinosaur that has pay 1 colorless, sacrifice Thrashing Bronodon, straight target artifact or enchantment. Next up, we have Naga Vitalis. This comes out of Amonkhet. I remember having one of these cards. I probably still have one of these cards. 1 green and 1 for a 1/2 Naga Druid. Tap it to add 1 mana of any type that a land you control could produce. And for the last card in this block of videos, we have Engulfing Slagworm at 2 green and 5 for a 7/7 worm. Whenever Engulfing Slagworm comes blocked, either blocks or becomes blocked by a creature, destroy that creature. You gain life equal to that creature's toughness. So it has something akin to Death Touch, and you gain life equal to the creature's toughness that dies. So that's it. We're over 20 minutes. We're going to end it here and catch you on the next